Border crossings are dead silent, airports are half full, and by the end of 2025, the US will have lost over $200 billion in tourism money, gone without a single explosion, just a slow, painful retreat. Is America quietly becoming a country the world no longer wants to visit?
Sharp decline in international visitors to the U.S., down at least 14% from a year ago. Tougher border controls and political tensions are blamed.
We have tariffs, they've been set, and it's going to make our country very rich.
The whole world is listening.
Something has changed at the US border, and not in a good way. For international travelers, especially those from allied countries, a trip to America used to be exciting. But in 2025, it's become a gamble. More and more tourists are sharing horror stories, being pulled aside for hours, interrogated without explanation, or even denied entry after landing. Some were sent back home despite holding valid visas. One traveler from the UK recently went viral for recounting how her brother was taken into secondary inspection at JFK and then deported without ever stepping outside the airport. No clear reason, no answers, just gone. Stories like these aren't isolated, they're everywhere. Reddit threads, YouTube videos, travel blogs, you name it. Families say they're scared of taking vacations where they feel like they're suspects instead of guests. And those aren't just one-off complaints. There's a growing online presence of people warning others, don't go to the US unless you absolutely have to. The fear isn't just about immigration rules, it's about treatment, tone, and unpredictability. And that fear is spreading fast. Some foreign governments are even stepping in. Germany, for instance, issued a travel advisory reminding its citizens that a visa doesn't mean guaranteed entry into the US. That's a subtle warning, but it speaks volumes. Other countries are quietly doing the same thing, telling their people that traveling to America might come with baggage they didn't plan for. It's a diplomatic message delivered without confrontation, but for travelers, it's enough to make them choose somewhere else.
2% in March. Canadians flying in fell 13%. Relations with our northern neighbor strained by tariffs and taunts.
What's happening at the border isn't just scaring off a few tourists, it's reshaping the global perception of the US as a travel destination. And once that perception changes, it's incredibly hard to fix. People don't forget how a country made them feel. For decades, Canadian tourists were a steady force in the US travel economy. Whether it was road trips to Buffalo, weekends in New York City, or sunny escapes to Florida, millions crossed the border each year without hesitation. But in 2025, something broke that rhythm. And it wasn't just a change in vacation habits, it was a quiet protest. After a wave of US tariffs on Canadian goods, Canada responded in a subtle but powerful way by encouraging its people to spend their travel money at home. It wasn't a formal government order, but the message was clear. Support local. Skip the US public campaigns and influencer promotions pushed the idea that vacationing in Toronto or Vancouver wasn't just patriotic, it was smarter. And it worked. The number of Canadians driving into the US dropped by over 35% this year. That's not a dip, it's a free fall. The economic impact was immediate. A single percentage drop in Canadian visitors cost the US economy hundreds of millions. But this mass pullback is expected to cost the US over $4 billion annually, and some estimates say that nearly $9 billion in Canadian tourist money have already been redirected to cities within Canada. That's cash that used to go to American gas stations, hotels, restaurants, and shopping outlets. All gone.
By US border agents have alarmed Europeans. Germany, the UK, Denmark, and Finland have all updated their travel advice for citizens.
Europe once had a soft spot for America. Families from Germany, France, and the UK dreamed of summer holidays in New York, California, or Florida. But in recent years, something has shifted. European tourists aren't coming in the same numbers, and it's not about airline prices or personal schedules. It's about politics, policies, and the feeling that the US doesn't really want them there anymore. Earlier this year, Germany quietly issued a travel advisory reminding its citizens that holding a valid visa doesn't guarantee entry into the US. That one sentence sent ripples across Europe. It wasn't loud or aggressive, but it made people stop and reconsider. If you're spending thousands on a family trip, do you want to risk being turned away at the airport? That hesitation started spreading, and it only got worse as tensions flared.
The authorities in the US set and enforce entry rules strictly. You may be liable to arrest or detention if you break the rules. It comes after British woman Rebecca Burke was held for 19 days over concerns she had breached her visa conditions.
Tariffs don't help either. US duties on European goods like wine, cheese, and steel, some over 100%, angered both businesses and consumers. And in response, European leaders didn't just retaliate with their own trade measures. They also started nudging their citizens to think twice about visiting the US. Travel agencies began offering more packages to Spain, Portugal, and Greece instead. The idea wasn't to punish, but to pivot. And that pivot is working. Booking to the US from France and Germany are down sharply. Tourists are skipping Disneyland for its Italy coast, trading Times Square for the streets of Prague. And the US is feeling it. These travelers used to spend big on hotels, luxury shopping, and fine dining. Their absence leaves a very real hole. When Europe starts turning away from America, it's not just a travel shift, it's a loss of goodwill that takes years to rebuild. The drop in international tourism to the US isn't limited to Europe or Canada. Two of America's biggest travel markets, Mexico and China, are also retreating. And while the reasons vary, the result is the same: fewer flights, fewer bookings, and fewer dollars flowing into the American economy. Mexico has long been a neighbor and a major contributor to US tourism, especially in border states like Texas, Arizona, and California. Families would cross over for shopping trips, theme parks, or just to visit relatives. But diplomatic tensions, immigration crackdowns, and even cultural hostility have made those trips feel less welcoming. As a result, Mexican travel to the US is steadily declining. Cities that once relied on Mexican tourism dollars are reporting drops in sales and hotel stays, and businesses along the southern border are noticing. Many are struggling to stay afloat. Then there's China. Before the pandemic and the trade wars, Chinese tourists were some of the biggest spenders in the US. Whether it was luxury shopping on Rodeo Drive or group tours in national parks, they made their presence felt. But that's changed. Between tariffs, rising visa delays, and a growing push from China's government to support domestic tourism, fewer Chinese visitors are making the long journey west. There's a stretch of land between Ontario and New York that used to buzz with life. Families in minivans, couples on weekend getaways, retirees in RVs. It was always moving. The roads were rarely empty. The duty-free shops never quiet. But if you drive through the same crossings in 2025, the silence hits you like a wall. Something's wrong. The roads are open, the signs still say "Welcome to the United States," and the stores are fully stocked. But the people, they're not coming anymore. This isn't a small dip in traffic, it's a collapse. The number of Canadians driving into the US has dropped by over 35%, and it's just this year. For local businesses in towns along the border, it's like someone pulled the plug. Hotels that once thrived on weekend guests are running half empty. Restaurants that cater to Canadian shoppers are closing early or not opening at all. Gas stations, souvenir shops, even roadside attractions that relied on cross-border foot traffic are struggling to survive. And what's worse is that no one knows how long it'll last. The reason behind this vanishing act isn't a pandemic or some natural disaster. It's politics, plain and simple. Tariffs and trade tensions between the US and Canada sparked a quiet but powerful consumer shift. Canadian leaders and influencers began encouraging people to spend their money at home. Don't take your dollars to the US, keep them circulating in Canada. That message resonated. Road trips to places like Seattle or Buffalo got swapped for vacations in Toronto, Montreal, and Banff, and the ripple effects were instant. Duty-free shops that used to see hundreds of customers a day are lucky to get a handful now. Their shelves are stocked with liquor, cosmetics, and snacks, but the aisles are empty. Parking lots that once overflowed with cars are sitting quiet. Even border agents have noticed. The traffic just isn't there anymore. In some areas, crossings that once saw hour-long waits are now processing cars in minutes. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.